So, guys, we're going to start off with this question around, or this topic around high debt and low income dilemma. High debt, people are in a shitload of debt and just not making the money they should be making. Now, I have a bias towards business owners. That's my passion. That's who I predominantly target. But we know that there's non-business owners on this call, and there's people that are in debt that are employees. So I did want to address it from both sides. But I want to start with the business ownership side. And I'm going to start off with, just in no particular order. Will, when you hear high debt, low income, what's coming to your mind?
So just make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're talking about like business owners having high debt, or are you talking about like the new grad stuff coming in?
Well, in this case, we'll talk about business owners, and then we'll talk about the new grads or employees that are coming in as well.
Got it. Yeah.
We'll do it from both sides.
Yeah, man. The business owner debt thing is so real. Our national average for profitability in the industry is 8%. So even if you don't carry any debt as a business owner, if you're on this call, you are killing it. That's a wonderful thing that you don't have debt. But man, Jamey, like it's so real that like even if you don't have debt, running an 8% profit margin is crippling our ability to pivot. Most PT owners, because of the financial circumstance they're in, don't have time and energy to put attention on the elements of their business that they know they should be putting attention on. That's why coaching is so valuable, right? Like having a coach to navigate those types of waters are essential. So that always comes back to that. And I always feel like I can say that freely because I don't do that, and I'm a big supporter of it. I always have a coach, but it's a bigger problem. I think, Jamey, we've got to change how we think about money as owners, even. Like, it's not even a matter of like, I think owners think about money well, but not compared to the new grads coming out who don't understand how money really works. But owners, we have to make prioritizing profitability as one of our top markers, because everything else is result of that. The thing I like to say is profitability unlocks possibility. So we don't even know how to get out from underneath us until we can start getting more profitable.
So are you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, are you saying the reason that there's higher debt just in the world of the business, and we're not talking about good debt, we're talking about you're getting into debt because you're sucking out more money. I mean, I've talked to people telling me just horrible stories. You're sucking out money in your IRA. You're sucking out money on the second mortgage of your house, on credit cards, because you're trying to keep the business afloat. You're trying to build the business and grow the business, but you're not. So you continue to get in higher debt, but you're not making the money. And you're saying that there is a profit margin problem. There's an issue. Yes, we know your profits are low, but is there a deeper issue there than just, well, you don't know how to market appropriately, so if you market, all the problems would be solved?
It's a mindset thing. So in my humble opinion, Jamey, you've got first leadership. It's developing people's mindset, and leadership is number one. Helping people experience their business, understanding it from the position it is, that our businesses are meant to feed our household income. Like that's one of the main financial purposes. But we have to make decisions based on the three filters, which is what's best for the business, then what's best for the investors, then what's best for the employees. And because we get so desperate in hiring, we put those employees first many times, or we don't understand the purpose of our business, and we treat ourselves as employees within our own business. So I think it starts with leadership, but then it does come to some understanding of the financials. Steve Allred's been jumping into people that I work with and helping them understand just how to leverage the markers to make plans. If we don't plan, we plan to fail. So there is an element of epistemological thinking around it, but then there's this third thing, and this is the last thing I'll say. I'm not going to ramble. This third thing is that we totally don't understand our industry as business owners. We think we're part of a marginalized business that is worth $30 billion in the industry, right? We're a $30 to $40 billion industry. We're not. We're a $600 billion musculoskeletal injury industry that we are the leaders of. They've done studies. There's no one who knows the musculoskeletal system better than physical therapists except for orthopedic surgeons. Everything else is us. And if we started looking at our industry from that lens, we would stop playing the same game the same way. But it starts with leadership, in my opinion.
All right, Steve, I'll kind of move to you. A, do you agree with Will? And it's okay not to agree. He looks great, but you can just disagree with everything he just said. And more so, I want to understand your perspective, just to give some feedback. You know, Steve has coached some of the most successful business owners in the country. He's worked with people millions of dollars, and he's worked with people hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's seen it all. Will was getting and alluding to this idea of mindset and the idea that we lose focus on the most important thing is for us to start off feeding ourselves and being okay with being profitable to take care of us so we can take care of our people. And if there's a money problem or a money mindset issue, that's going to affect our ability to do that. And then we get into more debt. What is your thoughts?
You know, it's interesting. One, debt does not fix profitability. It may prolong us kicking the problem down the road, but debt will never fix profitability. You have to address that first. You know, I talked to a friend of mine who does private equity, and he's owned some physical therapy. And he said, you know, when I invest in the stock market, I expect 10%. If I own real estate, I expect 15% return. If I'm going to own a business, I expect a minimum 20% because of the risk and the lack of liquidity. I think part of the problem is we think too much like we're employees, when in really we're investors. We're investing our money, our time, our passion. You know, we're putting at risk our house, everything we own, and we think like employees. Would you ever in your 401k invest in a stock that's going to habitually perform below market? You know it performs below market. To me, that sounds crazy because we know we wouldn't. But yet in our businesses, we expect or we accept, like Will said, 8%. We should be looking at how do we move it to 18 to 20%? Because if we don't have that and you pay taxes, you set money aside for the future, you invest in your business, 8%, there's just nothing left over. And, you know, I love what Will said, and I'll agree to this point for Will, is that profitability is possibility. I think I would say profitability is fundamental to good quality care. Because you can't hire, I mean, I've got a client now. They can't hire anybody. They can't hire good therapists because they can't pay what the market rate is, because they haven't looked at their profitability. They haven't figured out what revenue generation is and what appropriate costs are to do that.
Okay, so instead of looking in the mirror and saying, look, I'm responsible for the profitability of this business, do they, and I already know the answer, and I think we all do, but I'll ask it, do they look outside of them to find someone to blame of why it's happening so they can feel good about it's not me?
You know, yeah, I think we all know the answer. It's like me sitting on the couch and blaming the food industry for not losing that 10 pounds or 20 pounds instead of getting up and doing something about it. I mean, it's just, the reality is, and the beauty of this is, it's up to us. It's up to us to make the decisions. That's why we're there. That's part of entrepreneurship, is making hard decisions. But you do that, you get the reward. And so no, we don't look outside. It's not a marketing, pay somebody a lot of money to fix our problems. We got to do it ourselves.
Jason, disagree or give me a different perspective. Don't agree with those two. Give me something different.
I was trying to find something to disagree with because it makes for better ratings, but so far I've agreed with everything that I've heard. However,
yes, give me something. Anything.
Okay, so I can add an additional alternative perspective on that. Couple things that have come to mind. The first is, as an industry, as a profession, we do have a fundamental lack of comfort with talking about profitability. That is not the case in so many other professions. And here's an example. I'm willing to bet that just about everybody on this call has heard someone say, I didn't get into this profession to fill in the blank, make money. What's wrong with getting into a profession if part of your goal is, I'd like to be able to create a certain life for myself, and to do that, I need money? Why is that something that we should be concerned about if we hear? So that's the first thing that I would say. And the second thing is, we don't sell widgets when we own a physical therapy practice. We deliver a service. Who delivers the service? In many cases, some of it certainly might be the folks on this call, but I'm guessing just about everybody on this call employs some people who are delivering the service. So the question then becomes, how do they think about this? And I think we all know the answer to that. Profit, sales, revenue, these are four-letter words that that many of our employees are uncomfortable talking about. So I think what we have to do is, as a profession, as an industry, we have to remove the negative connotation associated with these conversations. And that boils all the way down to our staff meetings. For example, posing the question to your staff, is it unethical to be profitable? Is it unethical to make a decision in your clinic that will improve profitability? And then listen to their responses. I think it's an interesting exercise, because I do think if you were to do that at your practice, you would probably get differing perspectives there.
You know, Jason, I'd even take it a step further. I would say and argue, and I do argue, you cannot achieve your vision without profit, without enough profit. You cannot do it. And if we're not making the hard decisions, and they are hard decisions, that we are shortchanging our employees, we're shortchanging our patients, and sure as heck, we are shortchanging ourselves. Because if you are constantly stressed, you cannot show up as a leader. Your staff is going to feel it. Your patients are going to feel it. I think profitability is fundamental to doing what we got into this profession to do in the first place.
So what's the real issue here then? Where is this really coming from? Are we blaming the schools? Are we blaming our upbringing? Are we blaming our parents who argue, like I'm talking about myself now, my parents who argued about money pretty much my whole life? So I took that perspective of money is bad, money is fighting, money is this and money is that. So I took that same thing. Like it's
Yes.
Jason, you're talking about trying to fix something that's deeper in a staff meeting. There's a deeper thing going on here.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I don't know what I'm going to do to try to change, institutions, education institutions, professors. And I mean, they're professors. A lot of them have not been in business, and they're just speaking what they feel and they believe, which may or may not be true. So is there, and we don't necessarily have to come up with solutions, but are there any? Or is this just more of a understanding what we're actually involved in as business owners and realizing A, the answer isn't throw more money at the problem, and B, it's trying to qualify and bring people in that perhaps are more open to have a different perspective, because you're not going to change the people that don't. And I think a lot of us have employees that perhaps are not open to that.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have to talk about solutions, because obviously this is a topic that's very easy to talk about from a problems-based perspective, what the problems are. It's relatively easy to point that out. It's a lot harder to come up with solutions. My personal opinion, and I'll see what you guys think, at our core as a profession, in general, this is a gross generalization, I think we don't value the services that we provide. We don't put monetary value
Amen.
That's the core issue, in my opinion.
We value our education,
Yes.
but not the service.
No.
Yes. So this may be like we're agreeing too much, maybe because we're wanting to make this controversial. I'll say a couple of controversial
Well,
statements.
next time I'm going to have people on that disagree. So you three.
No,
you're all
I'm going to
saying-
say something controversial right now that no one believes on this call, probably, except for maybe me and a couple others. This is the single best time in the history of our profession to own a private practice.
Why do you say that?
The numbers. First of all, we are a $600 billion musculoskeletal industry, the aging population. The demand for our service has never been higher. For the first time in the history of our profession, there are resources to support owners in getting the help that they need. When I got coaching 15, 20 years ago, I had to go outside the industry, which, by the way, was probably one of the best things I ever did, because I had people look at my industry and go, what's wrong with the way you guys think?
Yes.
Like what Jason just said was so big. We value education and like stupid letters after our name. And that is maybe a little controversial because I don't care. I couldn't care less about a doctorate. I couldn't care less about specializations unless it produces a path for profitability. Now, what about patient care? Guys, it's two sides of the same coin, and we spend too much time on this one coin. And when I was a PT owner, I can speak into this because I was guilty of it. I remember dreaming of the day that all I needed to do was make $120,000 a year by owning my practice. I didn't care how many hours I worked. If I just hit that one marker, life would be great. And then I got to that point and life sucked. And this is true. I think I mentioned this last time. My wife found my Google search where I was finding ways to kill myself painlessly. She found that search. So when I speak about this, I talk about it from a place of passion that the biggest problem, like globally, it's easy to blame the education system because we were all in school. And I remember telling people I was going to be a PT owner one day and people going, what's wrong with you? Are you all about the money? I'm like, yeah, and the care. Can it be both? Controversial statement number 2, I think physical therapists should make as much money as humanly possible, ethically. But I want them to make as much money as possible because that means we're valuing our service. Stretch Labs down the street is charging more for a lesser service than you guys do every stupid day because they value what they do and the public gets into it. It's like when you pay attention. When you discount your services, and I have clients right now that I want to pull my hair out with that literally are like, well, I don't care that they don't have authorization. I'm going to do what's right for the patient. I'm like, really? Like, that's the problem is that, look, guys, the only people who are going to solve this is you in your own world. So kudos for being on this call because you're taking time to be here and like lead and stuff. And I'm going to call all of you out that we need to take a bigger stand together. It starts in your practice. Until you're making 20%, like Jason said, Steve said, it's incredibly like useless to like do anything else. You've got to get to that point where you're profitable, and you've got to start being bolder with our team members around like, hey, this is what we do. This is what matters. If you don't understand that, there's the door, and be okay with it because that's the only way you're going to attract the A players as well. So that's my 2 cents.
So let's move to, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I don't think that's the population that's going to be on this call.
Sure.
But we have these kids coming out with a lot of debt, not realizing that A, school's expensive, and B, the third parties are only going to pay so much regardless of your debt or what your degree or all that, your initials after your name. So what about them? There has to be something that happens. What can we do as owners to help them and support them? And what can they do?
Yeah, I'm jumping in real quick. So listen, the first thing I think about is being 20%, be an example of profitability. Take time off. Stop working yourself like a badge of honor. I'm not saying it's you, whoever's on the call, but this used to be me. I'm talking to a younger version of myself. I used to work myself so hard, and it was a badge of honor because I was so busy and I cared so much about my patients that I had no time for myself. So being an example is number 1. But then number 2, mindset. Stop saying it's hard. When we help people recruit PTs, the first thing we address is stop saying it's hard to hire PTs. It is easy to hire physical therapists in this industry. Super easy, if you know how. So know how, like, but you're never going to know how if we're blaming how hard it is. So when it comes to like helping the next generation, being an example is first. But guys, look at the obvious answers of how we could help them. Help them develop their own social media and personal brand presence. First, develop ours. Let's have a clinical or company social media presence, and then bring people on and say, hey, listen, I want you to develop your own following. Let me help you develop your own social media presence where you have a personal brand, where you can set up group classes on the side through our clinic that we'll host for you at a fee. Like, there's endless opportunity for these people because everyone needs physical therapy help. And if we stop thinking about being rehabilitative and start thinking about being proactive and what we can do with athletic groups or any other elderly groups, fall prevention programs, cash pay, you guys could come up with a million different ways to make millions of dollars.